I didn't cry at my father's funeral, and my sister billed me for the flowers. So my dad died in October, and I flew back to Ohio for the service even though I hadn't been in the same room as him in almost 9 years. My sister Danielle handled everything. The church, the casket, the catering, all of it. She's the kind of person who needs to be in charge of a crisis, and honestly I was fine letting her. I just wanted to get through the weekend and go home. The funeral was at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. I sat in the second pew because Danielle put me there, next to her kids, and I stared at the flowers on the casket and I felt nothing. Not relief, not grief, just this flat, tired blankness, like I was watching a stranger's funeral on TV. People kept coming up to me afterwards saying how sorry they were, how he was such a good man, and I nodded and said thank you and didn't shed a single tear. Danielle noticed. Of course she noticed. She notices everything. At the reception she pulled me into the church kitchen where the volunteers were wrapping up trays of ham. "You couldn't even cry," she said. "Not a question. Our father is in the ground and you stood there like you were waiting for a bus." "I'm processing it my own way," I said. "Your own way." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You show up once every 10 years and you can't even fake it for one afternoon." I didn't answer her. There wasn't a version of the truth she wanted to hear. So I just got my coat and drove back to the hotel. 3 days later, I'm home and I get a Venmo request from Danielle for $340. The note said, "You're half of the funeral flowers." I stared at it for a long time. Then a text came through underneath it. "You didn't contribute a dime to Dad's service. The least you can do is cover the arrangements. They were beautiful. He deserved beautiful." I wrote back, "You never asked me to split anything before you booked it, because I knew you'd say no. Just pay it." Everyone else pitched in. You were the only child who showed up and did nothing. Not even cry. There it was again. The crying. I put my phone down and I made myself a cup of coffee and I sat at my kitchen table for about an hour. And then I did something I'd told myself for years I would never do. I opened the safe in my closet and took out a manila folder I'd kept since I was 17. I texted her back, "You want to know why I didn't cry? Come over Sunday. Bring the flower receipt. I'll pay you in person." She showed up Sunday afternoon in her nice coat, already looking vindicated, already rehearsing whatever speech she had ready. I let her in and I set the folder on the table between us. "What's this?" she said. "Open it." Inside were the letters. The ones I'd written to Mom the year I turned 17, the year I finally told someone what he did when the house was empty. Mom's handwriting on the back of one of them. "We are not discussing this again. You will not ruin this family." Photocopies of the police report she talked me out of filing. A note from Dad himself, the only apology he ever gave me, which wasn't an apology at all. Just 3 lines about how I'd misunderstood, how I was too sensitive, how I owed him respect. Danielle went very still. She turned the pages slowly. She'd been 14. She'd been at Grandma's most of those years. She didn't know. She genuinely didn't know. And I watched that land on her face. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" she whispered. "Because Mom made sure nobody would believe me. And because you loved him. And I wasn't going to be the one who took that from you." She sat there with the folder open in her lap and her hand over her mouth. "I didn't cry at his funeral," I said, "because I did all my crying when I was 17 and nobody came. So I'm sorry the flowers were expensive, but I'm not paying for a single petal on that man's casket." She left the folder on my table. She couldn't seem to touch it again. The Venmo request disappeared that night, canceled. She hasn't asked me for the money since.